Well, the issues aren't just going to go away. Of course, the Abba Kyari case is something that is still big in the news. Just find out, of course, for those who have been following the story, the Federal High Court judge granted an application by the NDLEA to detain Abba Kyari and others for alleged involvement in some cocaine deal for a little longer. We'll be looking at this and some other issues related with Mike Ejiofor, who is a former director with the DSS and VP, Alumni Association of National Institute of Security Studies in Abuja. Thanks for joining us this morning. Truly appreciate your time. Now, first of all, there are the questions a number of people will be asking is how the intelligence community is taking this news, given the openness or vulnerability, if I can use the term again, of security officials in such a case.
Well, within the security circle, it's quite embarrassing, very, very embarrassing. And I saw this coming. The fall of Abba Kyari, I saw it coming because some of his antics, which people term exploits, were over-dramatized, and we witnessed this type of thing before, and that is, in the 80s, when we had this Anini saga, where the late Judge Iyam, who was executed through firing squad, carried out some of these exploits too, in quote, killing armed robbers, displaying their corpses and all these things. I think it has come to a point that the police management, on their own part, gave him the necessary support and all the necessary requirement, technological, this thing. And he now tried to outshine his master to the point that people were now saying, yeah, he's the future IG, was celebrated at the National Assembly, all those kind of badadash. It's very, very embarrassing. And I think it's a lesson for all of us that people should not be dramatizing operations. In a situation where you see an officer, filming, he now became, just like we have a politically exposed persons, he virtually became a socially exposed police officer, filming his operations, dancing on social media, he was on Facebook, he was on YouTube, he was virtually everywhere. That was quite unprofessional. And I think the police, too, has done well in at least cooperating with the various agencies in handing over to the NDLA. First of all, you see, that is the point I was trying to make. This was somebody who was on suspension.
We'll come to that, Mr. Ejiofor. Just 1 second. We'll come to that. We'll come to that, to the processes and all of that. But when you say he's a socially exposed person, is that to say that intelligence officers don't have a social life? You also said you saw it coming. Couldn't anything have been done to forestall this exposure of the intelligence community or security operatives or operations?
You see, the problem is that, like he said, that those whom the God want to destroy, they first make mad. This Abba Kyari has failed to be reined in by the management. I have had occasions too to even call him, and he refused to take his calls. And you see, some of these are people, including our elites and big men. You put a call across to them, they don't know why you are calling. They don't even answer their calls. So it's an opportunity for them to look at, examine themselves. You are not owing anybody. So if you're a public officer, you must always pick your calls. And for me, it's a source of information for me. I take all my calls, even the ones I don't know. I return the calls. But because of the shady deals they have, they refuse to take calls. So it's unprofessional, very unprofessional, for a serving police officer to be living the kind of life that, answering your question, that very unprofessional. for such a police officer to be living the kind of life he was living. You can
You know, I
see
think
the videos coming out now. We were expecting more. And more will come up. Petitions, I believe, also will come up.
But I think it's a general thing, a culture to have, you know, security agencies, I mean, show their exploits. I mean, in fact, going as far as parading suspects, which has been termed wrong time and again. So I think it's a general thing, and not just for the police. And over time, I've seen that the conversation, it's been easy to, you know, hang this on the police and say this is a police thing. The police is at fault. You know, they've always been doing this. But don't you think this is actually, it calls for introspection for all the security agents? Because, I mean, it's Abba Kyari we've heard of today. What about those happening that are yet to be discovered or have been discovered and have been covered up? So this is not a police thing alone. This is a general issue. Am I right?
I agree with you. It's not a policing. It cut across. And that shows general decay in our system. It's not just the police alone. It's everywhere in all segments of our society. So we need to do some introspection. Let me tell you, we should start by at least looking at the issue, the process of recruitment. And most people don't even come in now. The police, as I know it, is a very disciplined service, even though people have different impressions about the police. But you see, people talk about the police because they are closer to the people. In some local governments, you can see up to 3 divisions. So they operate more to be. It's not that the police is the most corrupt system, but because they are very close to the people, people tend to see them more regularly, and that brings them. And that is why they also have to look at their own image, bring up, try to polish their image to get the confidence of the people. For instance, I tell you, I joined the Nigerian police in 1975, and what is happening now? I entered the police as a matter of choice, not because I have no job to do. As at that time, you look at people, they tell you, yo, these people are dropouts. It's meant for dropouts. But now, you see politicians parading police officers who have been recruited. 40 recruitment process. Recruited through this. You send list to the Police Service Commission, you send list to the IG, and now they tell you, the Police Service Commission chairman also said about 3 weeks ago that robbers have been recruited. So we need to also monitor the lifestyle of serving officers. People living above their means. I can tell you that we have more police officers who are doing their job more creditably than Abba Kyari that have not even been recognized and given the type of publicity given to Abba Kyari. So for me, he has to face his cross. I don't think police management for now have been transparent in their process. He has been investigated, suspended, and handed over to the NDLA to complete their investigation.
So back to the point you were making.
If this is the price we have to pay as a nation to dispense with services, then it's good riddance to bad rubbish.
Well, let's now go back to that point you were making about, you know, the trail of events, seeing that he was in suspension, but he appeared to still be in charge of a unit and conducting operations. And I know that for every operation that, you know, policemen, security operatives conduct, they have to bear arms. And I believe that for you to bear arms, there has to be some authorization, I imagine. So if he was in suspension, he was in charge of a unit carrying out operations, that means that there had to be some sort of approval outside of his team, because I imagine that he reports to someone higher up the ladder. So in terms of the rules of, you know, operations within the police and other, thankfully you were part of the police, how can that happen?
Well, I wouldn't know whether he was. I wouldn't know whether he was armed while he was going there. All I know that the police management has taken the decision, put him on suspension. No, so he was on the frolic of his own.
The men,
whatever he was doing, the
men that were working under him.
It's only police that will investigate and find out.
No, the men that were working under him. Pardon me, if I mean following the trail.
Operations were illegal.
Pardon me, let me just put this in. So following the trail of the narration from the NDLEA, there was an arrest of a drug courier. An arrest will have been carried out definitely armed by armed men, operatives, and it was said that he was in charge of that operation. So that seemed to be outside of the normal purview of operations, because he was still in charge, a suspended person. So I'm saying the men that were working under him would have been armed, would have had some sort of, backing, I don't know, maybe vehicles and all that. So yes, they indeed had those, apparatus, as it were. So how can that happen? Because clearly they were armed.
You know that the Satan too, Satan has his followers. Even if he was on suspension, which I would not hold police management responsible now, even if it was to the public domain, he was on suspension. So devil has his followers. These people must have been carrying out this illegal operation for a long time. He said, like he said, that there's every day for the thief, one day for the owner. The cop has filled up now, so and that I think that is what manifested in this one. So I don't know whether he was armed. The police should be able to know whether he was armed and true. But most important thing is that disciplinary action has been taken against
Just
them.
a very quick one.
Those of them who are the younger officers taken to orderly room trial, and they're also suspended. Police Service Commission, based on the recommendation of the IG, have also suspended Abba Kyari and handed them over properly to NDLD to continue the investigation.
One is just wondering, Mr. Jaffor, how that is possible, because I think the question my colleague is asking is concerning process. For a suspended officer to execute such an operation, he must have gone with armed men. How would they go into their office, go into the armory to get guns without someone authorizing and saying, you can take these guns out? Now, that's on the one hand. On the other hand, someone has to approve that you are going with these guns to so-and-so operation under so-and-so command. That's the question that I think my colleague is asking.
No, I've answered that question. Perhaps you don't understand the process. The people who went with him are not on suspension. They were still serving. So he could have called them, and because of the possible relationship,
couldn't he? My apologies, Mr. Jaffor. Just 1 second on that. They weren't on suspension, but isn't there a process of saying you are going under such and such a person's command to go carry out an operation? Can you hear me, Mr. Jaffor?
Yes. See, you can only talk about that if the operation was approved by the police authorities. This was not approved by the police authorities. And this, like I said, these are serving officers. So they must have gone on their own to meet Abba Kyari to go and carry this illegal operation. So I don't think police should be responsible. Because if it's an operation authorized by the police, let them say so.
So what that tells me is that as we are speaking now, and this is not just the police, and I'm glad you agree with that, there are operations currently ongoing that have no approval whatsoever, that nobody, no authority knows about, that men are just going about conducting themselves in the way they deem fit, doing their own thing. And that still takes us back to the question, how can a group of policemen or men in whatever security agency just get up and say, you know what, we need to go on this operation without being properly monitored, without recourse to anybody in authority? Why is that happening? How is that happening? And I think that's the question yet again.
Well, it's not completely normal, but in societies like that, we have many people cutting across all the agencies, carrying out illegal operations. I have a case I'm handling now over enforcement of human rights in one agency who has no business at all with it. They came and they arrested this person. Despite my intervention, they detained this man for 14 days. and we had to go to court for enforcement of rights. So it is not normal, but you find it prevalent in all the agencies, people carrying out the illegal operations. And what it means is that the management, the leadership, should do some in-house searching to fish out these bad elements who are giving the services bad image.
Is there any such example of such a thing happening within the DSS when you were in office?
Well, in my command, where I served, I had, yes, I must be honest to you, I recorded some incidents like that, and disciplinary actions were taken against such officers.
Now, if we are to clean out the system, to do a complete overhaul, what would be your recommendation as to how to go about it? There are at least 12 or 13 agencies of government in the security apparatus of Nigeria. And so many people would point to so many lapses in so many of these institutions. So if you had to recommend an overhaul, what kind of process would you be looking at?
Well, we have, I would rather suggest to all the agencies to set up, you know, maybe in collaboration with the State Security Service, what is called a vetting session, where you have continuous vetting to look at the continued loyalty and lifestyle of the various officers. It's only then you can fish out all these other people. Without it, there are no magicians. You must be able to pinpoint how officers conduct themselves in their various services, what we call continuous vetting. And any such officer found should be. So I would rather suggest that various agencies set up such departments to monitor the lifestyle of their officers.
So, I mean, what kind of lifestyle is expected? Because that will be another question. So, are you saying that...
People living above their means.
Okay, good. So, are you saying that at a certain level...
that somebody who...
What's the salary of a DCP, for example? So, do you expect a DCP to not stay in an apartment, a duplex, for example, to not drive an SUV? That talks about welfare as well, but how do you measure what is beyond means now?
Well, see, you have somebody who has been employed for just 1 year or 2 years. He's driving an SUV. You know his salaries. And he's building their houses, he's marrying wives, children, and private schools. You cannot justify such means now, for God's sake. So it's no rocket science. It's something that is clear to everybody. If you have to, you call such person to question, how did you get it? Did you inherit it? Because some of them will tell you they inherited from their parents. Meanwhile, their parents had nothing before they joined the service.
So that would mean an indictment.
It's something that will have to be continuous.
So that would mean an indictment on perhaps the police and other agencies, because these things have been happening for years. I mean, these are things even people outside of the force know about. So it would appear as though these agencies turn a blind eye, except they're in on it, because, as I said, even people outside already see the lifestyles of these people. So can anything still change in that area? Because these things are open for everyone to see.
Yeah, you see, there's another problem there. Within some services, I don't want to go, because the police is not on trial. If you go to immigration service, they will tell you they sell passports. If you go to customs service, they tell you they seize vehicles and collect money. So it cuts across. And what happens is that these people, from the bottom up, make returns to some of these senior officers. So it's now inherent on the top management to do things right and stop this issue of returns and the posting of officers to what they call or what they describe as lucrative positions, where they make extra money from aside their salaries. You see some of them dying that they want to go buying postings. So it's part of the system. It's not only the security agents. Go to ministries. You see inflation of contracts. We need to fight corruption. Corruption is the bane of our societies and a major problem.
What, did you have such an experience also while you were in office of officers making returns when you were director? Was there such an instance?
Never.
Okay. Just wanted to...
Never.
Since you said it's something that happens, I just wanted to be
younger
clear.
officers who have the courage or the temerity to even come to me. You can't do it.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for coming.
And I say it proudly.
Okay. Michael Geoffrey, retired director with the SSS, as well as VP, Alumni Association of National Institute of Security Studies, Abuja. Thank you so much for your time and your thoughts this morning.